Well, I'm glad that you got that other song because I was teasing him today when I got here about your song service only has 4 songs. Did you think the preacher's going to be long-winded and is that going to be a problem? So, one quick announcement that didn't get brought up. Last Sunday, if you were here, Rocky Burns was baptized, and I'm not seeing them here today, but he and his wife Karen were here. They're now members of our congregation, so please make sure that you remember when you see them next week to give them a hug and welcome them to the family if you haven't already done so. Robert, you scared me to death wherever you're at when you made that comment, and part of when you said that, you put that extra burden on me and you stressed me out a little bit. And guess what? That's what we're talking about today. We're talking about stress. You know, we all have stress in our lives. And if you look at the simplest definition of it, stress is the body's reaction to a change, whether real or imagined, that requires a physical, mental, or emotional adjustment or response. Now, if you go to counseling, they teach you that you can either fight or you can flight. You can either challenge the situation or you can run from the situation. But we all deal with stress in our lives, whether we believe it or not, and sometimes that's a good thing, sometimes it's a bad thing. A recent survey, and this is truly as of, I think it was the end of second quarter 2022, just showing when they did it, the types of things that people are worried about. And I'm sure they are the exact same things that you're worried about. Rise in prices of everyday items due to inflation. 87% of the people were stressed about it. Supply chain issues, 81%. Global uncertainty, 81%. Potential retaliation from Russia, 80%. Russian invasion of Ukraine, 80%. The one that wasn't on here, 69% of people believe that we are in the genesis state of World War III, that it's eventually going to come. And then there's 69% of people that are just worried every day of how they're going to get through their life. So if you looked at one of those and you were like, I'm in that group, don't worry, you're not alone. Because there's lots of other people that feel the same way. You know, stress comes from a lot of different places. It comes from our job, our work. Maybe you just have a stressful job. Maybe you travel a lot for your job. Some of you don't know, I travel to California 3 weeks a month. I start at 1 o'clock in the morning on Sunday or on Monday morning, and I fly, and I'm in Cali till Thursday, and then I fly home, and that's my life. And I've learned to navigate, you know, getting through the TSA and getting around and getting my coffee cup before it gets warm, and I actually do it pretty good, but it still can be stressful. And now with the holidays coming up, I've got to think a little bit faster on my feet of how I'm going to make it through. Other things that bother. Raising children, aren't we stressed? I have a 40-year-old and a 30-year-old daughter, and I still worry about them, and I still think about them, and I still hope that they make the right decisions in their life. Travel. If you're thinking about the holidays, how are you going to go? Ben's getting ready to go next week. He's got to deal with all the travel and the logistics related to that. The illnesses and accidents. 2 weeks ago, you know, I was limping around, couldn't hardly walk. Before that, I think I broke my ankle. My bosses actually think I'm just an injury-prone person, or a klutz. I'm not sure which. Just getting old, you know. When I turned 50, I blew out a bicep. When I turned 51, I broke an ankle. I truly am a klutz. But I'm also starting to fall apart. And every day I wake up, I feel like something else is going to go out and break. And I'm sure I'm not the only one. Security. We read in the newspaper about things that are just happening all around us. And we don't want to get out and do things. Our finances. You know, if you get a 4% raise and inflation is going up 8%, you still got to figure out where that 4% is going to come from. How am I going to feed my baby? How am I going to take care of my son? How am I going to offer band practice or get my band equipment for my child? All of those things are going through our minds and all the things that we worry about. And sometimes it's just the time of the day. 5 o'clock in the evening and you're thinking, oh, if I had just gotten this and this and this done, I could be a little bit more relaxed. But instead we sat there all day thinking, I've got to do this. Oh, maybe I'll get up tomorrow morning and get up early. And that's okay because it's good to have a little bit of stress in our lives. But here's what happens. I came home from work and I'm tired and I sit down and the kids crawl up in my lap and they're like, Daddy, I want to play the clarinet. I want to do this. I want to play the trumpet. Now I'm thinking in my mind, I've got to figure out how I'm going to afford to get those things. Then my wife says, hey, we got a past due bill. And how are we going to pay that? And then I jump out of my chair because I hear a noise at our front door. And I'm like, what is that noise? And as I get up, my knee buckles because I'm getting old. And I fall and I stumble and I hurt my elbow. And all of it's because I came home at 5 o'clock. And so it's more like this. Everything's happening at one time, and so we just overload. And that's really when we talk about stress. What does it do for us? Well, it creates emotional stress. I've seen people just collapse internally. Emotionally, they begin crying and tearing up. They can't handle it. Mentally, struggling with it. Physical health, high blood pressure, just not sleeping at night. And then spiritualness. We get to that point where we just don't want to involve ourselves with anybody. We just want to stay in bed and not do anything, and total shutdown. And I say that because I have been there, I am there, and I struggle there. At 18, I was told if I didn't learn to get my stress under control, I would be dead by the age of 25. I have been through stress counseling. So what we're talking about is nothing new to me, because I've learned to relax myself. I can put myself out to sleep within a matter of 3 minutes if I follow the procedures that I was taught. I saw my mother 30 years ago have an emotional breakdown. I saw her go through electroshock therapy over 75 times to try to get herself out of it, and she couldn't do it. 15 years ago, she passed away because of pancreatic cancer, but it was more relief for us because it was 15 years of her life that she wasn't the mother that I grew up with. And so for me, stress has been in my life. I'm a stress eater. I would be a thin guy if I had no stress in my life. But I am not, and I'm a fat guy, and that's okay, because I'm happy with that, because I like to eat. But I can put away one of those little share pack of M&Ms. I don't need to share it, because I can eat it by myself, okay? Sometimes we just feel like this person. Just leave me alone. I don't want to have to deal with anything else. I've already got too much on my plate. And this is man's way of fixing it. Stress reduction kit. Place the kit on a firm surface, follow directions in circle of the kit, repeat step number 2 as necessary or until you're unconscious, and if you're unconscious, cease stress reduction activity. Now, I mockingly make fun of that, and like I said, I have been in stress counseling myself, and I do think it is of value. It's a $20 billion industry. When you look at stress management. If you type in stress management, you will have pages in Google of all the different resources that you can go to and find. And for some people it helps, and for some people it doesn't. I ran across this one, and I know you can't really read that very well, but this is actually a stress management technique known to be effective. But you can't see it, but as I started to look at it, and I actually learned this, let me see if I can do this. This was really cool. As I started looking at these little different lines that go down through here, can you see my little laser light there? This one says actions, and then down here under actions it says simplify your life, relax with music, here's time management. And I was like, wait a second, those are all things that I wanted to talk about today. And here's why. Because I do believe that the Bible has basic technology of managing stress just by following the Bible. And when I look at this chart, most of what I see on this chart is already been in the Bible 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 years ago, already written by people that God inspired to write. So today, I want to look at 10 things that will help you get up when stress has laid you out. And the very first one is get into the Bible. And I'm using a version called the easy to read version because I like the simplification of some of the words. 2 Timothy 3:16 and 17 says, all scripture is given by God, and all scripture is useful for teaching and for showing people what is wrong in their lives. It is useful for correcting faults and teaching the right way to live. Using the scripture, those who serve God will be prepared and will have everything that they need to do every good work. I think step number 1 is reaching for our Bibles. It's opening our Bibles. I once heard a preacher say, get into the Bible and let the Bible get into you. So it's not just, I'm going to open my Bible and read and I'm going to and everything's going to take care. It's really getting into it, looking and studying, really trying to read and make some understanding of what it is. And from that, you'll get that Bible into you, and you'll find that peace. If you look at God's perspective of your life, remember, he valued you enough that he offered a sacrifice for you. And that's taught in the Bible. So if God feels that you're of value, there's hope when you study his word, and there's guidance in his word. Because it tells us, those who serve God will be prepared and will have everything they need to do every good work. The next thing is get on your knees. Philippians 4, verse 6 and 7. Very simple passages that we read all the time. Don't worry about anything, but pray and ask God for everything that you need, always giving thanks for what you have. And because you belong to Christ Jesus, God's peace will stand guard over all your thoughts and feelings. His peace can do this far better than our human minds. If you read this, I believe it's in the American Standard Version, it uses the words that his peace that passes all understanding. And I was always like, what does that mean? This is one of the reasons I like the easy to read version, because it helps me understand his peace can do far better than my human mind can even understand. That simplified it for me right there, because passes all understanding was just this like words that my dad would say, and I just couldn't understand that very well. And so, what does that mean? You know what? When the roof is caving in all around you, and sometimes this happens to us, right? We live our lives every day and we say, oh yeah, I pray to God and I pray to God. But when everything around us feels like we're collapsing, it feels like we're wearing our knees out if we're doing it right. Because we're down on our knees and we're praying to God. And so when the roof is caving in, when stress is all around you and you can't figure out what to do, that's when you take the burden to the Lord and you leave it there. And that's a song that we actually sing, is take the burden to the Lord and leave it there. There's another song that Frank loves that's called Let Us Have a Little Talk with Jesus. I tease him about it because we used to sing it all the time, and he used to tell me it would wear his voice out because the bass singers never get to breathe in that song. But the idea behind that song is sometimes your life is just so bad, you just need to have a little talk with Jesus. And a little talk with Jesus doesn't mean prayer, laying on the floor spread out to God. It doesn't mean you have to be down on your knees. It can be a simple prayer, lifting up your eyes and lifting up your heart to God and saying what you need to say that time in that moment for relief. The third thing, the third step, getting your head on straight. And what I mean by that, if you look at Philippians 4, verse 8, brothers and sisters, continue to think about what is good and worthy of praise. Think about what is true and honorable, right and pure and beautiful and respected. When we get to that level at stress and we're overstressed, everything is bad. It's just terrible. You go through periods where I hate my job, and I hate this and I hate that, and then all of a sudden everything around you becomes that way. And sometimes somebody around you will say, man, you just aren't cranky anymore. And you're like, wow, maybe I really am. And so getting our head biblically centered, positive thinking is a third way to help us get our minds focused back to God and help us reduce our stress. The fourth way is get some Christian music. Our society today has music all around us, and there's all different kinds of music and genre. And honestly, a lot of what I hear out there is garbage. But there's a lot of good stuff that's out there too. And so the passage is Ephesians 4:32 says, encourage each other with psalms, hymns, and spiritual songs. Sing and make music in your hearts to the Lord. And that passage we use a lot when we're talking in setting in the worship service, singing, and that we don't use musical instruments, but we sing to God. But when you're at home, you can sing whatever you want. And if you want to sing a hymn, sing a hymn. If you want to sing This World Is Not My Home, sing that song. But there's also some really good music out there that will help lift you up. There's a bluegrass group that I listen to called Southern Raised, and they take some old hymns and they put it to bluegrass music, and it lifts me up. Some people don't like bluegrass. There's also other songs. I mean, if you really want to go crazy, there's heavy metal Christian music out there. I could never figure it out, never got into it, but it's out there. But there is some very good modern day music that says a lot. One song that I particularly like is sung by a woman by the name of Lauren Daigle. And the song is called You Say. So I want to share the words with you because it's actually one of those that's in my top 5 favorite songs that when everything else around me is struggling, it's that song that helps lift me up. Her song says, I keep fighting voices in my mind that say I'm not enough. How many of us have done that? Every single lie that tells me I will never measure up. Am I more than just the sum of every high and every low? Remind me once again just who I am because I need to know. The only thing that matters now is everything you think of me. In you I find my worth. In you I find my identity. Taking all I have, and now I'm laying it at your feet. You have every failure, God. You have every victory. You say I am loved when I can't feel a thing. You say I am strong when I think I am weak. You say I am held when I am falling short. When I don't belong, you say I am yours. And then it says, and I believe. And that is a song that gets me through days when I've had a rough day at work or I've had a rough day just in dealing with life to really think about who I am and the relationship that I have. So carry a melody in your heart. Help tame the savage beasts of stress, and it'll help encourage you and lift you up. The next one is get rid of the grudge. And C.S. Lewis once said, forgive the inexcusable because God has forgiven the inexcusable in you. Ephesians 4 verse 32 says, be kind and loving to each other. Forgive each other the same as God forgave you through Christ. Be proactive with your forgiveness. Sometimes holding a grudge can create a tremendous stress in your life. Being angry at somebody, regardless whether it's justified or not, creates stress on you if you ever have to interact with that person. And so, look at the way God did. Him sacrificing his son covered a multitude of sins. If you look at Jesus' willingness to go to the cross, to be able to cover that multitude of sins. Don't wait for forgiveness or for a person to ask you for forgiveness. Just give it to them. And that may sound really odd. And sometimes it may not be of benefit, but if it relieves a burden that you're carrying in yourself to say, I forgive you for what you did. They may not care. They may not, but for you, you've released it from your heart and from your burden. Number 6, get lost. And I don't mean like get lost like get out of my life. I mean, Psalms 46 verse 10 says, be still and know that I am God. Be still doesn't mean slow down to 45 miles an hour. It means stop. Pull over and make it a complete stop. Really take a moment to know God. Think about Jesus. At times when Jesus was surrounded by multitudes of people, there are times in the Bible where he got away and he went up into the mountains and he just needed to be alone. And so there are times where we just need to be alone. There are some times where we need to go to a place that makes us feel small and help us remember we're God's children and I am just a speck that he takes care of. When I go to Zion National Park, I feel that way. It is one of those places that I stand in awe with mountains all around me. I do the same thing when I'm at Rainier. When you get to the right spot and you look out and you're thinking, wow, all of this came from God, and I'm just this little speck, yet the Bible tells me how much he cares for me. So be still and know that I am God. Think back about your relationship to him. Sometimes we get so busy in the world with all these stressful things around us that we forget who we are and the relationship that we have with God. We can't just keep zooming through life. Not zooming like on computer, but zooming like running fast through life. Get busy is number 7. And in Galatians 6 and verse 2, it says, bear one another's burdens and so fulfill the law of Christ. My suggestion here is find somebody with a greater problem who needs a friend. Sometimes we're so wrapped up in ourselves and feeling so miserable because we're so overwhelmed. We just want to sit at home and we don't want to do anything. And it doesn't do us any good because then we just keep thinking about it. And so the suggestion is get busy. Find somebody else that needs more help than you and help them. And in so doing, you forget about your own struggles sometimes. So I like to use the word unselfishly unwind by helping other people. And then get happy. I love the picture of the dog. Laugh until your belly hurts, then laugh a little bit more. Proverbs 17:22 says, happiness is good medicine, but sorrow is a disease. If you read the American Standard, it says a cheerful heart is good medicine, but a crushed spirit dries up the bones. Sometimes in the middle of being overstressed and feeling like there's no place to turn, you got to find a place to be happy. And you got to find a way to laugh. And sometimes you just got to find that relief somewhere, somehow. But the Bible tells us that sorrow is a disease. Sad hearts create physically ill people. So we need to figure out a way, again, to help relieve stress. And one of those is being happy. Number 9 is get moving. And the picture says anybody, but anybody can exercise. And every time I jokingly told Diane this the other day, every time I say, okay, today's the day that I'm going to start, and I'm going to lose weight, and I'm going to start exercising. In fact, the last time that happened is the day that I tore my toenail off my toe, and I could barely walk for 2 weeks. And I'm trying to say that was a sign from God that I shouldn't be exercising, that He likes me pleasingly plump and wants me to be this way. And she says, no, that's not. That's the devil keeping you from doing, bodily exercise for your good. But 1 Peter 4 verse 8 says, training your body helps you in some ways, but devotion to God helps you in every way. It brings you blessings in this life and in the future life too. And I'm not suggesting that you have to go to the gym and lift weights, but sometimes just doing a walk makes you feel better. And getting out and having regular physical body movement helps our blood pressure, it helps our overall wellness. And then sometimes the things that are discouraging us the most and stressing us the most then suddenly become smaller items that we deal with. And so my recommendation is get moving. Find a way, and it may be walking, it may be riding, it may be chair aerobics if you're not able to get up and move a lot. It's just finding a way to help your body physically move. Got a guy in the front row here kicking his legs, doing swim kicks. I didn't mean right now. But don't become a couch potato. When we become couch potatoes, we start growing negative things all around us. There's also the passage in Isaiah 40 and verse 31 that when we start talking about physical exercise, people like to bring up. But those who trust in the Lord will become strong again. They will be like eagles that grow new feathers. They will run and not get weak. They will walk and not get tired. What I like about this is the part of the passage that says they will be like eagles that grow new feathers. Because in my research, there was an ancient belief that as eagles would molt their feathers, they would lose their old ones and they would grow new ones, that it would revive them. And so older eagles, when they would go through their molting process and have new wings, would become energized again. And so when we're thinking of this passage, those who trust in the Lord will become strong again. They will be like eagles who, as their old feathers go away and their new feathers come back, they're restored and they're energized. And so when we're talking from an exercise perspective, again, we're talking about our bodies physically moving and helping keep strong so that we can be renewed in that instead of just being that couch potato who's very comfortable to sit there. We must never allow stress and fatigue to rob us from our time with God. And then number 10 is get a life. The best is yet to come. And in Philippians 3, verse 13, The writer said, "I know I still have a long way to go, but there is one thing I do. I forget what is in the past, and I try as hard as I can to reach the goal before me. I keep running hard toward the finish line to get to the prize that is mine, because God has called me through Christ Jesus to lift up to life up there in heaven." And I put this little line in there. There will always be should have beens and should have dones in our life. Every day at the end of the day, I'm like, if I'd have just gotten up an hour early, I could have knocked out an extra 100 emails. I could have felt like at the end of the day, I was on top of my game, and instead I'm feeling like I'm an hour behind. And so then tomorrow comes and I don't get up early again tomorrow. And so by the end of the second day, I feel like I'm 2 hours behind. And the reality of it is, it's a should have been, it's a should have done. There's nothing I can do about it. I can't change it. So instead of beating myself up on it, I need to just go forward and think about what's to come in the future. And just stop living in the past. Sometimes that means changing our habit of thinking. A lot of us, it's natural for us to live in the past and think of the way it was. We hear it with Paul. Paul talks when he's in his karate classes of how, if he was younger and when he was younger and now he's older and he can't do what he could do. We all are there. There's all things that we can say in our lives that I should have done that, or I could have done that, should have been there, I shouldn't have been there. But what we really need to be focusing on is where we're going. And so when we talk about the stress of life and dealing with different stresses, like I said, quickly recapping, we need to get into our Bibles. We need to let the Bible get into us. We need to get on our knees and pray more often. We need to get our heads straight. And by that, again, I mean biblically centered, positive thinking. We need to listen to more good stuff, Christian music, versus what the world puts out there for us to listen to. If we've got grudges in our life, get rid of them. Forgive people and move on and go forward in your life. Take time to get lost. Stop, be still, and know that I am God. And listen to your Father. Get busy helping somebody else. Forget about what you're going through and help them feel better. Get happy and find ways to be positive and uplifting. Laugh a little bit. Laugh at yourself. I do that really well. Get moving. Find exercise, whatever it might be. Arm waves, whatever you need to do. Get your body moving to help renew your soul and your spirit. And then get a life. And look towards where you're going. Like I said, is stress a part of our lives? Yes, we all live with it. We all deal with it. Have you, though, allowed stress to overpower you? And that's really what we're talking about. The 10 steps are things that you can do that our Father has placed in the Bible as a guide for us, that man now has published this grand management technique style that teaches the same things. It just was 2,000 plus years later after Jesus came and after we started having Bibles. The thing is as Christians, if we're twisting and braiding our lives to be with the Lord, that's where our hope is then. And as Christians, that's what we should be doing, right? We should be trying to twist and braid so that our life is right in line with God and that we are wrapped around Him and in soul unison with Him. But friends, if you're not a Christian, where's your hope? Where are you looking for? And how are you finding relief? If you don't believe that Jesus is your Christ, that He came to save your soul, you don't have a place to go right now. In the past, the things I just read to you, which are simple steps, and again, I'm not trying to discount stress management and stress counseling. If I had not done it myself, who knows whether I would even be alive today. But if you have no hope, and if the last step of getting a life and looking where you're going, if you don't even have that hope, what do? You bury yourself in stress. The Lord has given us an opportunity to find ways and given us ways to reduce that stress in our lives. And again, stress is good to a point. Stress becomes bad when it's overloaded. The Lord's given us that opportunity. He's given us the Bible. He's given everybody the opportunity to become his children and to be able to have hope in him. So at this time, I want to be able to offer up an invitation to anybody that's here that needs prayers or needs baptism to be able to walk in life with God. Our song is, "This World Is Not My Home." If you would stand while Jim leads us in the song.